After 40 long years of wandering in the wilderness, the Israelites stood on the brink of a new era. Moses, their faithful leader, had passed away. In his place stood Joshua, a man handpicked by God to lead them into the promised land. Imagine the weight on Joshua's shoulders, the hopes and fears of a nation resting on him. But God had chosen him, and God would be with him. Joshua was a man of strength and courage, forged in the fires of hardship. He had seen God's power firsthand, witnessed the plagues in Egypt, and experienced the miraculous provision in the desert. He knew that God was faithful, that he kept his promises, and so Joshua rallied the people. He reminded them of God's promises, of the land flowing with milk and honey that awaited them. He urged them to be strong and courageous, to trust in the Lord their God. Their first challenge was daunting. The Jordan River, swollen and overflowing its banks, stood between them and the promised land. It seemed an impossible obstacle, but God was with them. He instructed Joshua to have the priests step into the river, carrying the Ark of the Covenant. Imagine the scene: the priests, feet touching the water's edge, their faith trembling but resolute. And as they stepped into the rushing current, something incredible happened. The water upstream stopped flowing. It piled up, creating a dry path for the entire nation to cross. This miraculous event wasn't just about crossing a river. It was about crossing a threshold of fear and doubt into a place of faith and trust. It was a visible reminder of God's power and his faithfulness to his promises. The first city that stood in their path was Jericho, a mighty fortress with towering walls. Once again, God gave Joshua a plan. For 6 days, the Israelites were to march around the city once, with armed men leading the way, followed by the priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant, and then the rear guard. On the 7th day, they were to march around 7 times, and then, at the sound of the trumpet, the people were to shout with all their might. Imagine the scene: the Israelites marching silently around the city day after day. What were they thinking? Were they filled with doubt? Did they wonder if God would come through? On the 7th day, as they marched and the trumpets blared, they shouted with everything they had, and then the earth shook. The walls of Jericho came crashing down. The Israelites, empowered by their faith and obedience, were victorious. God had given them the victory. Section 4, Faith and Obedience, the keys to victory. The Israelites' journey into the Promised Land, beginning with the crossing of the Jordan and the fall of Jericho, teaches us powerful lessons about faith and obedience. Joshua's unwavering faith in God's promises, even when faced with seemingly insurmountable obstacles, serves as an inspiration. God had given them the Promised Land, but they had to trust him and follow his instructions to claim it. They had to step into the Jordan before it parted. They had to march around Jericho before the walls fell. Their obedience, fueled by their faith, unlocked God's power. Section 5, God's promises, unfailing and true. The story of Joshua is more than just a historical account. It's a timeless reminder that God keeps his promises. He is faithful even when we are faithless. He is powerful even when we feel weak, and he is ready to lead us into our own promised lands, those places of victory and blessing that he has prepared for us. But like the Israelites, we have a part to play. We need to trust him, obey his commands, and be courageous in the face of our giants. We need to remember that he is with us, just as he was with Joshua, every step of the way. Section 6, Learning from Joshua, Courage, Trust, and Obedience. As we face our own challenges and journey toward the promises God has for us, let us remember Joshua. Let us be encouraged by his courage, inspired by his trust in God, and challenged to live lives of obedience. Let us remember that the same God who parted the Jordan and brought down the walls of Jericho is with us today. He is ready to do amazing things in and through us if we will only dare to trust and obey. Let's step out in faith and claim the victories he has in store for us.